Live tonight from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the 20th race of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. We're tonight for the Irish Hills of Michigan. We are happy to have you with us, as always, on a Monday night right here on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with you. As always, our director this evening is Brett Wheeler. He's downstairs bringing us to you tonight, and Justin, qualifying currently underway for what is the fourth to last race of the regular season as we get set for a return trip to MIS as the 2-mile D-shaped ovals continue on the calendar tonight, and we continue to close in on that playoff cut line.
Yes, but this one drives a lot like a super speedway with this draft package. Drivers will be going near full out around this racetrack, especially in the early to mid run, reaching speeds of more than 190 plus miles an hour. Track position could also be very key, which is why a lot of these drivers are trying to put in the best qualifying times they can right now in the 39-second range, with the 39.1s all the way to the 39.8 so far.
And it is not all question marks. Of course, very early on in the season, we got to experience what these cars did on a racetrack like this in Fontana. Jason Jacoby won that one, but as well, I mentioned a return trip to MIS, Justin, because we were here just a couple of weeks ago for round number 13 of the calendar. That one also won by Jason Jacoby, so he's looking to keep himself perfect and go 3 for 3, but a lot of drivers with some sporty race cars looking like they're going to be able to put quite the challenge to him tonight.
Absolutely right. Now, of course, Jacoby trying to go for the clean sweep of the 2-mile circuits. But again, it's going to be an absolute dogfight to try and come away with the checkered flag. And depending on when some of the restarts lie, it could potentially shake up the order as this race continues to progress, because it's going to be a wild one. And guess what? As we take the grid, Evan, it's going to also be a very cold racetrack.
It is. As the sun ducks behind the clouds, we look forward to the 80 laps and 160 miles of action. Due up, let's go trackside. Take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid. And how about Jeremy E. Miller? He'll put that car on pole with a 39.178. Only driver to dip down below the .2s. He'll bring us to the green this evening and is joined on the outside of the front row by the number 12 of Skylar Shackelford, who starts in second. Blake O'Connell rolling off in third tonight with Kyle Kamer alongside at the fourth spot. They make up the second row, and just behind them you'll find the 9 of Thomas J. George starting P5.
Jeremy Bazemore starts just outside of him in 6th position, with Nicholas Caldwell just outside the playoff bubble, coming in the top 20 in points. Let him recover after a rough Watkins Glen starting in 7th alongside the driver who's won both the 2 miles so far in the season, Jason Jacoby. Andrew T. Jones, a driver for the Final Four in 2018's championship run, looking to try and move himself up to the top 16, will start in 9th on the grid. He'll start alongside Scott Brotherton.
Behind them, Todd Novosad will start in 11th position tonight. Sean Kalis at a 43 car, going to be right there as well in 12th spot. Tom Morano starting 13th this evening. Rhett McBride will start from 14th. And a final car to take a time at a qualifying session inside of what is going to be row number 7. It'll be John Fowler.
The driver that's just beside him, though, yet to put a star next to with 9 victories on the season, Andrew Freenosh. He has a chance tonight to get the double-digit wins and match his total from the 2018 championship season, and just about 2/3 of the races through the schedule. Connor Horn will start behind him, though, in 17th, with Eric Stanford, Shane Parrish, and Jonathan Goodell rounding out the top 20 starting positions.
And then continuing on through, rest of the field is based on a provisional. Scott McClendon starting 21st tonight, and then you'll bounce back to Brian Chambliss in 23rd. Jeremy Rettenberg's 24th, Kurt right behind him in 25th position. You'll also find Matt Miller 27th, Dylan C. Jones in the number 27 spot, and that'll round out and look top to bottom at your LSR TV starting grid. As the field begins to roll, Justin, let's talk a bit more about MIS. 2 2-mile D-shaped oval. We know that. It is 18 degrees of banking, and we were actually talking before we went on the air tonight just how different this racetrack races than it did just a year ago with that 2018 package compared to this low horsepower, very much a drafting-oriented package. It's still a fun racetrack. It's still a fast one, but it has certainly become a new challenge for these drivers into this year as we get set to go green.
Yeah, last year a lot of drivers will get separated. You have maybe a caution to the entire race, yes, but you'll also be sometimes as much as 10 seconds back potentially of the race leader depending on how you did in the short run, and might not be able to even see the leader the rest of the way all the way to the checkered. With this package though, it leads to a lot of craziness, especially in the first 10 laps with drivers wanting to gain positions. Then on top of that, the dirty air playing such a crucial role for lots of drivers to fight for track position. It's going to be an absolute wild one once again here at Michigan, as we've seen with the other 2-mile races on the schedule. And it could be up in the air on who takes the checker flag depending on how drivers play the strategy game and how they handle a lot of the traffic on the short run.
Coming into tonight, the final points cut line is a 13-point difference. We're happy that you're with us at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network as we say, let's go racing at Michigan. Green flying in the air for round number 20, and it is a pretty even start for both the inside and the outside. They'll drag race through the gears to turn number 1, but it is Jeremy E. Miller inside line. He'll break free first time at a 2 as they look to the back straightaway. O'Connell follows him on the inside.
Drivers 10th on back. I don't even think they got up towards the line. In fact, they lost a lot of time to the lead group already. They're 3 wide for the race lead, but Miller's not where he wants to be, really. I don't think quite yet. No one's working with him on that bottom line, and they're all looking to try and potentially freight train him if he can't get up there as the 67 gets to the quarter panel.
Miller does lead at the completion of lap number 1 as that drag race will actually see the Miller machine hang on by just 1/1000. Look at the 9 car up to the middle of the racetrack now. Thomas George trying to make it work. The 12 car is Shackleford bobbles. We're 3 wide for the lead, and behind Miller sideways at a 2. And your pole sitter hangs on, but he's way down off of the racetrack and lost a ton of time.
And that was something we were talking about a little bit. Drivers can get loose, and you also at the same time will see potentially not as much give and take. It looked like in that case, that time I think the George machine just got a little bit loose and made that contact. Miller though now has to deal with a lot of right side damage that will hamper him the rest of this run.
That shakeup is going to put Blake O'Connell to the race lead, but it may not last long. Then on to George is going to block. Look at Jason Jacoby to the very inside. The 3 car who started in 8th position has made a very spirited charge at the front early. He wanted to go low down there in 1 and 2. The 9 was not having any of it, and we'll see if the same thing happens in 3 and 4. Jacoby down to the yellow line a lot sooner. The 9 car leaves with a car length of an advantage, and actually Jacoby will take second away from Blake O'Connell as Thomas J. George now goes to the race lead. There's the dive to the inside for the 3 car, side by side for the race lead, side by side for third behind them, but it is going to be Jacoby winning out to the point just 4 laps in.
Yeah, and a great burst of speed and a great run for Jacoby already to get up to the lead as George scrapes the wall. But now this is the toughest thing, keeping the lead, especially in the first 15-ish laps of a run, as George nearly hit the quarter panel trying to cut towards the seconds line.
He's already got some damage. You can see the left-hand side of the number 9 machine is torn up a little bit, so George has already had some contact early in this race. This time by, it is the first official lap lead for Jason Jacoby. 4 laps down, long way to go still tonight from MIS, but it has been full throttle from the get-go. They're 3 wide just behind this trio up front, and they may go 3 wide in their own right. It's George to the outside again. O'Connell trying to make the inside work. He just cannot carry enough speed at a 2, so he'll tuck in line behind them and watch the side-by-side exchange for the lead continue. We'll see if he does put that 67 aboard a Mustang to either lane. Thinking maybe he was going to go with the 9 car. He'll just stay in the middle, and it is now George on the top line, back to the race lead, and all of this fighting has brought more cars into the picture. Bazemore, Shackleford, just to name a few, 11 cars last time within 1 second of the race leader.
And you just got right to my next point there, Evan. The more they drive side by side, the more they're going to side draft one another. And the more they do that, the more they're going to let everybody else back in them, regardless of what position you are on the racetrack. They had the chance potentially to maybe have a breakaway of 3-4 cars. Instead, they got a little bit too greedy, and now they're getting a little bit too slick now as they continue to now bobble their way through turn 4, which you'll see more and more of as this green flag run progresses.
Fourth lap in a row. It is a different race leader. This time it goes back in the hands of the 3 of Jacoby, who works on the inside line. Shackelford, the 12 machine, looked like one of the sportier cars right off at the drop of the American Ethanol green flag, but he had that big bobble into 1 and 2, stepped it up the hill, and it kind of got overshadowed by the fact that at the same time, Jeremy E. Miller nearly dumped it out of 2 on his own, so we kind of jumped to watching him recover the car, but the 12 also lost a ton of spots, so he's just now getting back into the conversation, and I think should be pretty happy that he didn't tear up those tires, hit him up, flap spot him, whatever it was that the 12 machine needed to hang on to that car. Jason Jacoby, for the first time all race, feels like he's led 2 laps in a row now, but the 9 car right there on the quarter panel, side by side for the point again as he drives it in deep on the inside line. He'll clear, push up at a 2, and take over control for the moment. 3 car can't come back on him because he can't cross him over. The 24 of Connor Horn from 17th to 3rd is into the picture now.
And where did Horn come from was all I can really say. He's just been able to go right through the traffic, take advantage of some of the miscues in the back, and just work his way slowly but methodically through this draft. And now all of a sudden, he's got a shot to take the race lead here with a huge run, 119 plus miles an hour with Jacoby helping.
191 that time for the fastest cars down and into the quarter. And look at the 3 of Jacoby. He's so tight. The 9 car barely gets by without getting taken out. Thomas George not wanting to move up and give away the run. Almost got dumped by the 3 car, but Jacoby is able to hold it down just enough, and they avoid what would have been absolute chaos that time at a 2. Now as they come at a turn 4, look at the 12. Same thing, Shackelford, corner exit adjusted. It's the point in the run where they're not going to be able to go full throttle all the way around anymore. Maybe starting to feather a little bit on exit as the tires start to feel that degradation and they lose their grip. Everybody really struggling on exit as the 3 of Jacoby wants to try the inside again. I just find it hard to believe maybe that the 3 is going to be able to make that very inside line work at this point like it did maybe in the opening 5 laps, and he'll just slice right back up in line in between the 24 and the 9.
Yeah, I think he either needs to, of course, clear on by Apex and then try and pull off the slide job, or try and get the job done on the outside line, or have Horn get tight like he just did on the bottom side. However, that momentum will still carry forward. But you made that point, of course, with the handling of these cars. At this point of the run, you're already, of course, letting off on entry. But on the corner exit, the car really bobbles around where you're trying to wait until that exact moment where you just find the right amount of grip. If you end up getting back on the gas too early, you end up potentially spinning to the inside grass or the pit wall. If you end up hitting the gas where you're bobbling too much to the right at that moment, you'll end up sliding up into the outside fence. So it's kind of a balancing act to figure, where is my grip? When can I get back on the gas to be able to get my momentum forward? If you don't get it timed up right, you end up losing momentum like Jacoby just did out of 4.
The weather's really playing havoc on the dynamic track model because the sun keeps diving in and out of the clouds, and at least for that last lap where we were there pretty much in total sunshine, track temps up to 105 degrees, so that doesn't help these guys that are starved for some grip on exit as is out anymore. The 24 Horn Company car lengths advantage this time down the back. The 9 Michigan George, not a lot of momentum, so the 3 car of Jacoby stays in front of him. Shackelford trying to make the pass the long way around on the top side of the racetrack. It will not happen there, as the 12 machine now has a bad corner, and O'Connell will go back down to the inside. So most of these cars we've been talking about from the very start, but again, Connor Horn started in 17th position. He's your leader just 13 laps into this. Well, can't promise it's going to last the entirety of the run. You still got Jacoby George and company on the back bumper of him, but what a run that he's had. And also Rhett McBride. Haven't talked about the 5 car that much either. He's in a good battle right now with Nick Caldwell for 6th and 7th on the racetrack. He started in 14th position and is up inside of the top 10 as well. So a lot of drivers making money moves early, and those tires were certainly, I think, more able to make some of those aggressive passes work.
But a lot of cars are also starting to lose that grip at the same time, and this is what separates the good drivers from the best drivers. We've already seen Tom Morano just smack the wall and now is already dead last on the racetrack. Nearly brought out the caution the past lap and a half ago in turn 4. We've seen multiple cars, including Nicholas Caldwell, bobble their way through turn 4 this past time by. So this is again where some of the best drivers come out to shine. If you're able to save your tires for this right moment, where you're not going, say, full throttle, let's say 80% full throttle to save a little bit extra grip for this amount, for this point of the run, you're one of those drivers potentially moving up to the field. If you end up, say, burning your tires, say, such as the 9, you'll end up moving to the bottom side, already have damage from contact before, and lose all your spots on the bottom side.
That was not a good exit for Thomas George. Jacoby by the 12 of Shackleford on and through. And the aforementioned number 5 of Rhett McBride right there on the outside line also. He'll complete the pass. So the 9 car is really struggling, and again I have to wonder just how much of a factor is that left front damage pain on the 9. The only benefit of racing in the sim is that kind of damage isn't going to cut a tire down. If that was a real life cup car, that left front would probably be gone, but aero sensitivity is big at this racetrack, and I think that's definitely hurting him as the 5 of McBride actually scrapes the outside wall that time at 4. So O'Connell in the 67 going to dive back down to his inside. But, you know, all of that, Justin, ties in with your point. You want to talk about drivers maybe not going with 100% throttle. You saw that this weekend with the Cup Series race here at MIS. Drivers trying to save fuel. If you're the car out in front and in clean air, you can't really do that. But with all the draft, all the wake back in a pack of cars, you could maybe get away with 80 to 90% throttle, and of course it's going to take it a little bit easier on your race car. You will save some fuel. Not that I think fuel conservation is a factor in this race strategy at this very moment, but it certainly does pay if you know how to work it.
Yeah, exactly right now, and we're seeing that a lot as here comes Jacoby looking to dive to the inside line. But I don't think he's going to be able to have that momentum to be able to make the pass down the bottom side. But to get to your point again with the fuel, the more you're within the draft, the more you save. It can amount to somewhere up to a full gallon you can save by staying behind somebody for a full run with this draft package. So some drivers, depending on how they play it, might be able to get very close to the halfway point. It will be close, but it will be an interesting fuel situation to say the very least. Drivers might be able to stretch it to, at the very, very most, maybe 38 laps if they stay in the draft most of this run. If you're Horn, you might say, can only go in about 35, 36 laps.
And of course, if you could go 38, that only puts you too shy of being able to cut this race in half. So maybe the drivers would appreciate a caution flag, and if it is that razor thin, and if this race were to stay green throughout, you could see some drivers really trying to save by backing way off to make it on that strategy, or you would see drivers do the opposite, not give up that time at a racetrack, push really hard, and then of course just have to come down for that extra pit stop compared to anybody else who may be able to make that strategy work. We are finally seeing some separation inside of the top 10, still single filed out, a lot of cars within striking distance of one another, but the top 3 trying to pull away in this battle for the race lead. Horn, Jacoby, Shackleford still 1, 2, and 3 on the racetrack, and just as they had grown about a 4/10 of a second advantage over 4th on back, McBride is right back into the picture, and he's brought Thomas J. George in tow with him. So just proving that it is not going to be a walk in the park for these guys to get away. 19 laps down to the 80, this time by almost quarter distance already.
And it's been going very quick. I'm surprised, honestly, of how clean and respectful a lot of these drivers have been since the drop of the green flag. There hasn't been too much contact. Other than a couple moments here and there, everyone's giving some nice, decent space. This is some of the best racing I've honestly seen at Michigan this entire week. Very impressed with what we've been seeing so far. But the question is, though, how much is this going to last? Say, it's only a quarter way to the race. What's going to happen, say, when we get to 10 laps to go? How much give and take will we see by then?
Yeah, certainly it is going to change and evolve as this race goes on, and I mean, we did start to see some of those close call situations where drivers were getting tight. They were pushing up awfully close to one another, and we did get away with a few. You mentioned, the likes of Morano haven't gotten into the wall. Scott McClendon, I guess I should say, Morano 6 laps down on the pit lane. His night is in effect pretty much done. And then Scott McClendon also was having a lot of technical issues. He is still having those technical issues. So McClendon has dropped to 15 laps down in 26th. As the battle for the race lead picks up again, here comes Jacoby back to the inside into quarter number 3, and a caution at the same time. First one of the night, it comes at lap 21.
Jeremy Bazemore upside down on the backstretch. This is a rough one for the number 1 machine.
One like a top on his lid. The LSR TV replay will show it. That car maybe just lost connection, and Justin, we've heard of drivers having their screen black out, and that car just did not continue to unwind off the corner. It pretty much stayed turned as it would be in the center of the corner, all the way out, plowed into the inside wall, and that car absolutely obliterated.
Yeah, it just looks like he had no idea where it was going, or the wheel got stuck turned to the left. And I think he realized at the last moment, oh man, I'm not on the racing surface or in the corner. I'm in the middle of the straightaway on the apron about to smack the wall, and didn't get onto the brakes until the last moment. So Jeremy Bazemore's car completely destroyed. And that brings out the first caution flag of the race. Should also note, Andrew Freenosh apparently started from the pit lane for today's race. This will allow him back to the field. He was 20 plus seconds back at the time of the yellow.
It was in 23rd position, so I would note, hey, that's not going to be an easy amount of time to make up. Of course, we've seen Connor Horn go 17th to 2nd, Rhett McBride 14th to 3rd, and Dylan Jones 27th to 8th positions. A lot of drivers have made the early moves. The good thing about this caution flag is it is going to put us inside of a one-stop fuel window once we go back green. But your race leaders down to pit road, expecting them all to go 4 tires in fuel. We did see a surprising amount of 2 and no tires over the weekend with the Cup Series. Not expecting that to be the case tonight, as all these drivers want to get 4 fresh Goodyears.
Yeah, 4 tires and fuel have to be the name of the game. You need a full tank of fuel to be able to get that spoiler out of the air, so to speak, as some of my teammates would say when it comes to building setups and pit stop strategy. But as well, you need those 4 tires to have as much grip. It's not as simple as taking 2 tires where you have a lot of tire slippage and you get very tight and or loose, depending on which side, of course, you take. And it's a major decision, and if you don't make the right one, of course, it can end up being the end of your race.
It is a gamble, and you do have to, I guess sometimes you don't have to be perfect. You can make mistakes, but certainly being perfect and on the right strategy call does help you out. Connor Horn in the number 24 machine does win in that battle off of the pit lane, so the 24 will lead atop Jacoby, Shackelford, O'Connell, and then Caldwell. So it does look like the 5, Rhett McBride, is going to give up substantial time in the number 5 machine to stay in his box and to get that damage fixed. We were talking about the possible effects that the 5 machine may have had. He got turned into his pit stall, so that cost him some time, and then again, obviously, getting some of the damage repaired. So the 5 car drops outside of the top 5. Just to follow up as well on that incident with Scott McClendon, we saw I guess I should say with Jeremy Bazemore, rather, in the number 1 machine, who had the seemingly technical issue off the corner, just as we were talking about similar technical issues with Scott McClendon. Jeremy Bazemore now has lost his connection to the service and to the sim, so his night may in fact be done, aside for the fact that obviously that car was involved in an issue, so that would seem to as well imply that the reason that car seemingly drove into the wall on his own would be some sort of a technical issue, and him dropping out of the session seems to back that one up. So he will drop out of the race. He'll join Bazemore and Morano McClendon. Those are the 3 that are running a lap down as they go right now, Johnson. But as I mentioned, when they were coming into the pit stalls, this does kind of simplify things. And of course, when you get the first yellow flag, there's no guarantee you're ever going to get another 20-lap green flag run, just the way it is. But now this all of a sudden becomes if the lights go on top of the pace car this time, a 55-lap race to the end, that would as well leave us, again, in a reasonable fuel situation where we're not talking about drivers really trying to stretch it. You could easily go 55 laps on a one-stopper, and would certainly make things a lot more clear if it does end up being a green flag run to the end.
Yeah, you just split it up the middle, basically, if you're any of these drivers. So it's all simplified now. You just need to be able to find people to pit with, because in green flag pit stops this weekend, Michigan, if you pit on your own, and you didn't have any draft to help you maintain speed once you got out, you were essentially a sitting duck where you lost basically the amount of time you would have if you stayed out on older tires regardless. So you need to be able to, when you come in for that, if we get green flag pit stop, have to come in with fellow drivers to be able to still maintain a shot. If there's a chance, though, say if a group of drivers undercuts the field, they might be able to pick up at least 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds, and then they would end up being potentially reeled back in the final 10 laps by the drivers, say, on the fresher tires. So there is some possibilities, but it is simplified overall, though, where you don't have to panic and think, oh, can I make it on one, or do I have to take 2 stops?
And of course, this is all assuming that this race stays green, and if we get any more yellows, the race starts, not only will it be exciting, because, I mean, that first restart had 3 wide nearly for the opening 10 laps of this contest. They're only going to get more aggressive as the night goes on, and that may give some drivers some opportunities to maybe try to be heroes and make up some spots. So we'll see how disciplined everybody can be. But a race start is coming up with 25 laps down, 55 laps still to go at MIS. Connor Horn, Jason Jacoby on the front row, 24-car control car for this restart. Of course, can dictate when to be go green and can get a big jump, but with the draft, with that jump, I should say, isn't going to help him all that much. The draft to keep everybody close. Shackelford O'Connell back on row number 2. Pace car down and in, though. Let's see what the number 24 Speedway Chevrolet has got. He waits 2 seconds, puts the right foot down, and we are back green at Michigan.
And a massive jump for Connor Horn. I'm surprised, in fact, he went that early for this start. One of the earliest I've seen in Michigan this week. But that might actually not be the best of things, though, again, because that will allow everybody else to reel him back in. He's going to need to hope they stay side by side so he can try and maintain the lanes and figure out where he wants to run through turn 3.
And because he was so far out as they draft back up on him, the closing rate is so great. Here comes Jason Jacoby to the inside line. In one fellowed swoop, he took over second away from Shackelford, trying to get up on Connor Horn. And now without the drafting help, Shackelford tries to pass, but the 3-car blocks, and it is Jacoby leading that lap by 6 1/1000ths over Connor Horn. So that momentum works to the inside line. Shackelford still not interested in helping the 3-car out. He'll go to his inside as Jacoby slides over the nose of Horn to take over the race lead.
And this is going to still continue to go back and forth, though. We've seen this the first green flag run of the race. Whoever's got the biggest run into turn 1 usually has taken the lead on the short run. So don't be surprised to continue to see this flip-flop. Connor Horn looks like he's going to get this led lap. However, Jacoby has a lot of help with Shackelford, and Nicholas Caldwell nearly got squeezed trying to fall behind Shackelford as Parrish took the bottom.
They're 2x2, probably tighter packed together inside of this top 10 than when they were coming out of 4 for the restart. Door-to-door for the race lead. Jacoby loses the momentum off of the quarter, beat on the inside, and it is the 24 Horn benefiting for the 18 degrees of banking. He dives down now into 3 and defends for the race lead for the time being. It's all his off of the final quarter, but you can see with just how many race cars are so on top of each other, so many cars coming and going with the runs and trying to make 2 or 3 different lanes work, just how dicey these laps immediately off of a restart are. And again, we got through that first run with some minor incidents, but no big ones and no actual accidents that triggered a caution flag. Will we be as lucky this time as Shackelford back up to second over the nose of the 3? Jacoby's going to push him all the way down the back straightaway, looking to the inside as they go for the move.
And this is Shackelford's home track, in fact, on the iRacing service. So you have to know he's going to be trying to be hungry to try and get himself into victory lane today. and now he's gone from 4th to 1st in the span of a lap to get himself the lead lap. The thing is, though, he's going to get a chance now to work with his teammate in Horn here on this outside line to try and see if he can maintain it.
And not only Shaka Ford, as you see Jacoby push a little bit and Connor Horn gives him the space. Not only is it a hometown race for Skylar Shaka Ford, but as well the Rittenbergs. Jeremy and Kurt Rittenberg also driving out of Club Michigan. So won a good showing this afternoon at Michigan International Speedway. Those cars a little bit further back in the pack. Jeremy's running right now in 22nd. Kurt, though, top 10 after starting in 25th, so a quiet, great run so far for the 44 machine as the 24 and the 12 continue to exchange blows. Horn of the race lead down into 1 and 2, but expect this 12 of Shackelford to come right back out with a counterpunch.
Yeah, he's going to be still following in this draft, and you mentioned, of course, Rittenberg inside that top 10. A heck of a run, in fact, for Rittenberg at this point. And he's been quietly but methodically cutting through the field. Plus 15 since the drop of the green flag. He did have at one point contact with his own brother that ended up losing the 26 a lot of spots. However, he's been mostly clean in that 44 Ford Mustang to be able to cut his way up to the field. Is now working with the back end of Miller and Stanford as they're 3 wide in front of him.
It almost looks like some formation flying with the 3 wide behind the 2 sets of 2x2 as the 2 of Caldwell almost drops out of the 3 wide exchange. It looks like it become 2 wide as O'Connell wins out on the very outside line. And listen, this is a common theme. This isn't surprising anybody, just that the outside is better off for the quarter, which is why we've seen so many slide jobs. And I know that's kind of a short track term. You don't expect to be talking about it at 180, 190 miles an hour, but on numerous occasions, the likes of Jacoby, see if even Shackelford will do it here. They're going to get the advantage by driving in on the inside line, so they're better on entry. But Shackelford knows Connor Horn's going to be better on exit. So what'll he do? He'll step up the hill. He's slower, but he blocks the 24 in, and that's a Cup Series slide job at 185.
And it also comes down to when you do it. Some drivers don't like it, say, if you try and do it in the middle of the corner. If you do it right there on the exit, with this package, you end up having a little bit more leeway where drivers will end up giving you that kind of a draft shot to move the momentum forward and keep the pace up. And I keep on expecting that the rest of this race, potentially, all the way up to the pit window. But take a look who's trying to poke his way towards second. Dylan C. Jones, plus 24 from the start, is inside the top 3 and has a chance for second here, potentially.
And Dylan Jones has a lot riding on this at a 03 Ford Mustang. Comes into tonight 18th in the championship standings. Of course, only the top 16 make it into the playoffs. He is 21 points back of Scott McClendon, who is the last driver inside of the playoff cut line. The 03 machine has been very good, but has missed a couple of weeks this season. Only 12 starts of a possible 19. That's why he's coming from behind. This is something else that we discussed pre-race, Justin. If this 03 could make tonight and the next 3 starts, has a very good chance of racing his car into the playoffs and looking for a championship, and certainly somebody who could compete for one.
It's only just his 13th start in the season, including tonight. However, every time he's been in the race, he's usually been strong. 7 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and of course has also got a victory to his name on the Cup schedule. So he's got pace. He's just got to make sure he shows up and gets himself some points, because coming into tonight, the gap between him and the cut line was around 21 points, but the caution flag is out. In the back of the field, Matt Miller and Brad Chambliss involved.
Chambliss barely avoids going into the pit road wall as our second caution of the night comes out. And take a look at the LSR TV replay. Matt Miller is where the issues come from on his own. The 78 just got all kinds of sideways, and the 45 guessed wrong when it came to trying to avoid him. Chambliss tried to go around the outside. He got slammed into, and both of those cars wrecked at a turn 4. Kalis through the grass, surviving that one. Second yellow tonight, and it's a 2-car incident.
Just an overcorrection for Matt Miller, simple as that. Most drivers are told just don't cut towards the right, because when you do, you'll end up having exactly that situation where he snaps right into Chambliss's door, and then you're just a passenger and basically towards that outside fence. So the Misfit Motorsports machine with severe damage. This might be, at the very least, his lead lap contention done for the night. That might be at least a few laps of repairs.
And obviously no intention there to take out the other cars, Justin, and you don't want to go up the racetrack, not only because there's cars there. I mean, there was a car on his inside too, so I think if he doesn't just save that car outright, he's going to hit somebody. But as well, if when a driver realizes that, okay, I'm not going to be able to catch this car, they tend to prefer spinning down low, because a lot of the time you spin through the grass and you'll be okay. Whereas, of course, if you snap up the hill, well, there's always going to be an outside wall there. Whereas at the inside of the racetrack, depending on where we're racing, there is a little bit more room to try to recover. Nonetheless, though, a handful of cars involved. Matt Miller does claim responsibility for the caution flag, so he'll receive an end of the longest line penalty for the next restart. Pit stops, 3 laps shy of halfway home. First car in is the 12 of Shackelford.
The one last point I want to make, though, with that caution flag, though, is when you're in the middle of the moment while you're behind the wheel, essentially, Evan, you basically only have maybe up to a half a second to decide what you exactly do in that situation. And you can end up going back and thinking what it could do to fix it, what it could have done in that moment later on. However, when you're in that said moment, it's really difficult to make sure you do so. And some drivers end up making that mistake with no intentions, as you mentioned. You just end up making mistakes, and you end up having at least some that you'll end up looking back in the race tape and say, I could have did something different. I think the same thing could be done here with Shackelford. He's lost the lead to Connor Horn.
Second time in a row, a change for the race lead happens on pit lane. Second time in a row, it's Connor Horn to the race lead. Pacing under a second of caution flag at a Michigan International Speedway, so we'll take a quick opportunity to throw a yellow of our own. Step aside, and we'll be back for the restart at halfway home. You're watching the Michigan 160, part of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, right here at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
My name is Steven Corpenos. I'm a senior web developer here at iRacing, and I work on the beta UI. It's funny because iRacing has been around for 10 years, but we want to keep delivering the best possible user experience to our customers, and we've found that the old UI isn't exactly what we're trying to deliver in 2018. We want to use new features and provide the best possible experience when using the sim. One of the projects that I've been working on is some custom heat racing configuration for hosted races. We've been listening to our customers. Everyone's been asking for custom heat races. Maybe you want to tweak a few things with the preset iRacing configurations. Well, now you can using the beta UI. So once you're at the homepage of the beta UI, you just go to create a race. Then from there you go to your set race options. And you'll notice here under event types, you can actually choose heat racing. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new format from scratch. You can choose the number of entrants. And as you can see, when I made that change, the change was actually reflected on the right side in the graph. Also, you can use the estimated duration at the bottom of the graph when you're changing the length to see what the total duration of your event will be. In addition, you can customize every aspect of the session information, practice, qualifying, heat races, consolations, and of course, the final feature race. Because the beta UI allows us to develop features that are robust and complex, this feature will be exclusively available on the beta UI. Once you've made all of the changes, you can hit save. Say you forgot what you selected. You can always preview it using the preview format button. We are very excited to release the brand new heat racing configuration feature that will be available in Season 3 of iRacing.
Back live at Michigan International Speedway, restart coming up, 40 laps down, 40 laps to go, and just to be mentioned on the yellow flag previous to this, well, that the fuel strategy didn't matter anymore. That no longer the case. We're right back into that window where drivers seemingly going to be just shy of making it, and a lot of cars topped off as the lights went out on the pace car.
I would still still have that in the minds of some of the drivers, though, because only half the field ducked down at either 2 to go or 3 to go for the restart to top off their fuel. The top 10 drivers either topped off the first time around the pit lane or stayed out after they got their fresh tires. It could be interesting to see who can make it to the end if we stay green.
We'll take your look top to bottom at the Ford Entertainment Group midway break in a moment, but right now we are back green flag racing halfway home at Michigan, and it is a good jump for Connor Horn. Second time in a row, the 24 as the control car will yield a couple of car lengths of an advantage in the one, but again, as they get through the gears, up to full speed and start to work the draft. Watch Shackelford and Parrish with a huge run, 5 miles an hour faster as Parrish to the inside of the 12, 3 wide for the race lead.
And the drivers who didn't top off were hoping this race ends up having a yellow to bring them back down. But look at Shane Parrish, a huge one on the bottom side, and has a chance to lead his first lead lap of the night tonight here at Michigan. They're still 3 wide behind, and look who's charging up.
Parrish comes into tonight only 24 spots out of a playoff position. How big could this be for the driver of the 18 Ford as he's in the conversation? Shackelford still there, but Andrew Ferdinand, first time tonight. The car that started from pit roads here, and we're all over each other on the outside as Caldwell's getting beat up by the 24 of Connor Horn. They almost wrecked each other, but stay in the fight, and the 2 cars loose again.
Oh, big crash behind him. Caution flag is out.
Oh, and it is John Fowler who gets hit again. The 22 is up and in the air. It is the 3rd caution of the night, and John Fowler got loose on his own into 3, hard into the outside wall, and then when he landed, got hit again by Brian Chambliss. Second time tonight, the 45 has been in a major incident.
And that was a terrible angle. First off, to have that just lost grip, ended up in 3 and 4. That was what I was talking about. With this package, with this specific setup for the fixed set, you need to get off the gas in 3 and 4 a touch to be able to get the nose to settle down. Fowler didn't do that. Snapped it back to the right to make sure he didn't come down into Brotherton, and just ends up launching off the safer barrier up into the air. And that was Chambliss involved in his 2nd straight incident that got even more damage onto the car in the aftermath.
This now will clarify the fuel situation, because I expect everybody to come down to pit road here. The interesting part will be the tires, because of course everybody just got tires on the last one. Just a couple of cars topping off to try to make it a distance, and a couple of cars diving out. Connor Horn stays on the racetrack, feeling like he'll be able to save enough fuel under this yellow to make up the 2 to 4 lap shortcoming on the fuel mileage, but everybody else wants to top off. All these cars on pit road should be good for the distance.
Yeah, they should be good to go, even the drivers that stayed out on the racetrack here, I believe, because now they're going to be able to clutch and coast or shut off their engines and be able to save their fuel that way. But this has opened up some strategies. Nicholas Caldwell has taken 2 tires to get himself track position. Only a 5-second long pit stop is the first one out. The only driver outside of Kyle Kamer to take 2 tires in that stop sequence.
I like the call. Parrish goes with 4, Ferdinand, Shackelford, and you know, those drivers, really no risk of losing too much track position, so they stick with the 4. But Nicholas Caldwell, again, was just on pit road at lap number 38 to get tires. He filled it up. He took 4 tires, so they're only about a lap and a half of green flag action old. He was running at the time of the caution flag in a pretty good position in 4th, so he will gain 1 or 2 here against the cars that he's racing against, but he'll actually lose track position overall based on the cars that stay out. Connor Horn, Blake O'Connell, Kurt Rittenberg, and Thomas J. George are the ones who do not come down pit road.
And the thing is with the tires too, it's not that big of a deal. I don't think to even stay out a couple laps since, again, we ran a couple green flag laps on the set of tires for those drivers who stayed out, right? Those tires will end up equalizing with everybody else that ended up pitting because of how much they're going to be racing right behind them as the speeds pick up on the racetrack because of the clouds above said circuit right now. So they're going to be in a decent spot. They just need to hold on to the said track position though, because it's going to be once again another crazy restart with under 35 laps to go when we get back on the green.
And of course, a caution flag could come out and it throws all the strategy out of the window. We'll see how it plays out. We are past halfway, as we noted. Good as opportunity as any. Let's take a look top to bottom at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break as we pace at lap number 45. Connor Horn is your race leader. He'll lead atop Blake O'Connell, Kurt Rittenberg, Thomas George, and Nicholas Caldwell, who will be your top 5 for the ensuing restart. Again, Caldwell, first car off for the pit lane on 2 tires. Parrish with 4. He'll be P6. Andrew Friedage is 7th. Skylar Shackelford in 8th at the moment. Kyle Kamer is back in 9th. And Eric Stanford, needing to go to points night, rounds out your top 10.
There's a lot of drivers in this part of the graphic that are probably going to be punching themselves for coming down the top off field. Then having the quick caution come just a couple laps later. Scott Brotherson's up to 11. Todd Novosad in 12th. The pole sitter, Jeremy E. Miller, is back to 13th. Dylan C. Jones, who was up in the top 3 before all the cautions, is now back in 14th again. Jeremy Rittenberg's in 15th with Andrew T. Jones, Jason Jacoby, and Jonathan Goodell rounding out the top 18. Sean Kalis has been staying in the back trying to keep clean in 19th, while Rhett McBride rounds out the top 20.
Final car on the lead lap in 21st, that's going to be Brian Chambliss. 1 lap down, P22 for John Fowler, and the rest of these cars pretty much out of it. Matt Miller, in fact, just now officially going to behind the wall. It'll be a DNF for the 78, currently 23rd. He'll lose another spot because Tom Morano is pacing 13 laps down in 24th. Jeremy Bazemore is out of the race in 25th position, and so is Scott McClendon in P26. That's been a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. For more info, log on to www.fegpc.net, and you could mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. It is a race recap, and it is a race reset. 34 to go on the board this time. Everybody good on fuel for the moment. We think the top 4 may be closer than everybody else, but I think they all have an equal shot at this one now.
I think so too right now. As long as you keep the car clean and drive smart, you've got a shot essentially. You just need to keep up with that lead group. If you drive, say, 4 wide after 3 laps, that might not be the best move. So I expect a lot of the drivers to try and think smart and think big picture here, because there's still 34 laps to go when the green flag flies up at that stand for these drivers to try and battle it out.
With the 24 cars gone, he's out in control like he's used to be in the lead car for a race start. Green flag back in the air. 34 to go at MIS. How is the second half of this race going to treat us? It's been a good one so far, with varying strategy that now seems like it'll be not a factor. The sun shines on the field in turn 2 as Kurt Rittenberg, a race high P2, is in the trail of the 24.
He's the only driver inside the top 24 in points yet to get a top 10 this season. He's now got his best position of this entire season, I believe, in that 44 Ford Mustang. All he has to do is continue to keep it clean, but he's got a lot of drivers that are looking to maintain pace behind. They're too wide behind, and he's got nobody willing to help him, and some teammates lining up and charging him now in the middle.
Everybody else drafted on the outside, so he had to go low, try to cut the front stretch as much as he could. Draft off of Connor Horn, just in hopes of staying side by side, but his car is too tight. He'll wash up the hill. O'Connell pass it up high. The 9 to Thomas George gonna follow the 67 through, and the 18 machine is Shane Parrish. Trying to work the bottom, they'll stay 3 wide. And a 44 right now struggling to find some grip. He'll pick it up though as they go 3 wide for second in front of him.
And I don't know if that's a smart move to go this early, 3 wide on a run. Shane Parrish might be in the worst position, and George might be able to just charge his way into a single file position on that outside line of the corner exit. That's why I said you don't want to be 3 wide. Parrish got loose underneath that first seam and checked everybody up on the bottom.
Oh, look at the 3 car. Jason Jacoby puts the metal down. Oh, he'll slam the 2 as he knocks Caldwell to the inside. So the 3 Ford is bullying his way through the field. On the inside out of the 23 machine Miller side by side with Jacoby. All of this as Horn, George, O'Connell, the top 3, 4, and 5 actually trying to single file out just a little bit. It is craziness back behind them, and Rittenberg's actually found some stability in the thick of things as Shackelford passes him on the inside, and of course I mentioned it, and he has a bad quarter. The 18 of Parrish is by, the 3 of Jacoby through as well. Not a good exchange for the 44.
I think he's actually starting to see how crazy it's getting now for 4th, 5th on back and saying, I want to try and get some separation just in case things get too crazy, in case cars start colliding. But now that's causing 3 wide where that machine is at now, where he's going to have to deal with Kamer and Jones on his inside quarter panels, along with Stanford and Caldwell in the group.
Maybe one of the crazier restarts we've seen so far tonight is everybody knows that this could be the last run to the end of the race, which means it'd be your last restart, last chance to get this many cars so close to you, trying to take advantage of one another. But the thing is just that if they're racing like this, it's probably not going to be the final restart of the night, as we can finally focus back up and up on the race lead. George with a half a car length lead out of 4. I don't think he's going to lead it at the line because the momentum in favor of Connor Horn is going to bring the 24 back to the point in front. But with all of these drivers going at it right now, knowing what's on the line, 28 laps to go, that can fly by in the blink of an eye.
And you said it right there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a green-white check of the race, the way they're racing these machines right now. And right now, they're side drafting each other so much that it's turned into a 2-group pack, essentially. Top 8 have now pulled away from 9th on back because of all the fighting between Kamer and Caldwell. And now this is going to continue to shuffle more and more as they make contact.
The 9-car slides. Jacoby comes down, gets into O'Connell, and the 9 at Thomas George has wrecked into the pit wall. Jacoby's back up on track, and he takes out Andrew Frenage.
And that's not going to be popular there. Jacoby trying to save it and avoid the pit wall. Unfortunately, though, that correction ends up taking him right across the racetrack. Nowhere for Andrew to go. And I understand completely why Jacoby was trying to avoid the pit wall and join O'Connell and George in the lane, who are going to have to deal with speeding penalties. But that's going to absolutely destroy a few drivers' good races here with the big one.
And there's a lot to unpack in this one. It was Jacoby moving down the hill, trying to pass Connor Horn, while at the same time, the 9 of Thomas George is coming up the hill, trying to, of course, side draft off of the race leader. They get into each other, and Blake O'Connell's the odd man out here, who those 3 go spinning. That's the, collection of cars that I initially followed. It was a big hit for the 9, who actually got into that pit wall, but the live cameras, you were following Jacoby, and you can see that he came back up on track and right into Andrew Frenage, who took a huge hit. He goes up, collecting Eric Stanford, and it is an ugly mess on the front straightaway.
And that's what happens if you end up getting loose at the wrong place for on time off turn 4, especially where that bump is on the outside line again. That's what could potentially happen, where you just end up losing grip and end up having that amount of contact. Just A lot of bad luck and a lot of bad situations there, unfortunately, for many of the drivers involved in this one. Just man, oh man, this is going to change the complexion of some of the point standings positions for some drivers, and potentially the complexion of this race now with how many drivers were involved and how many contenders were involved.
And a lot of drivers obviously not happy about that when race control has had to take away radio permissions from a handful of cars involved in that one. So, you know that they're voicing their displeasure, and of course we did say that there's always a chance that there was going to be another yellow with the way that they were racing, and that is the case. So everybody back down pit road, and now fuel really isn't a concern. They can top it off if they want a heavier race car, but all the pit stops from this point on to the end are going to be tire-oriented or tire-focused, and Connor Horn goes 4 tires on the Speedway Chevrolet. He'll go out to the far right-hand side of pit road and win the race off of the pit lane pretty easily. No change for first or second. Kurt Rittenberg in the 44 picks up another spot. He jumps into P3 and could end up being one of the big winners in all of this after a lot of cars, top 5, top 10 speed, seemingly now out of this contest.
Remember, he was actually dropping to the back as that was going on there, Evan. He can see exactly what was happening with how crazy it was getting. 3 wide for battles, drivers starting to get loose. He had a feeling that was going to be happening probably in that cockpit and said, I gotta think about this smart. I have to keep this car clean to have a shot to contend for the win. So he started dropping back slowly but surely. And what do you know? It ends up being the smart idea with that incident there. So that's definitely going to be an absolute W for Kurt Rittenberg to now be up inside the top 5. And essentially 15 drivers on the track without significant damage left in the circuit. 14 if you don't count Chambliss.
So could have very big championship implications. Horn leading, Shackelford in second, and you know, not to kind of go off on a tangent on an unrelated note, this time Bud Light stay on top of the pace cars, so we kind of have a moment to dive into this, and it was a point that I was going to make earlier that surprised me, Justin. You mentioned, you know, cars inside of playoff positions with top 10s, and the highest running driver without a top 5. In the championship is a Scott Brotherton, Jeremy Rittenberg, you know, those drivers not that far off. It's surprising to me that of the 16 drivers who are currently in a playoff position, I thought it would be a fun stat to look to say, well, who's the highest driver without a win? There's actually only 4 cars in the playoffs right now with wins. And, you know, Andrew Ferdinand has swallowed up a lot of them. 9 to this point this season. 4 for Jason Jacoby, 2 for Connor Horn, and then you got to go all the way down actually to outside of the playoffs for Dylan Jones in 18th position. So only 4 of the top 20 in points have race wins this year. Means a lot of drivers have been racing, having consistent finishes, double-digit top 10s, a handful, half a dozen top 5s, but being unable to convert. And maybe a night like tonight with a little bit of attrition could be the flip of the script for somebody.
Potentially, especially I think you got to watch guys that don't have one specifically. We mentioned a lot about Rittenberg. I would keep an eye on Shackelford because he's been up at the front essentially since really lap 10 of this race today and has showed a lot of speed in the Cold Air Productions number 12 machine. He might be someone to watch for. I would also keep an eye on, say, a Jeremy E. Miller or Dylan C. Jones, who have been looking to keep their cars clean, are now towards the back end of the top 10, that now might be able to, say, if they time up the runs and be able to make passes, be able to get themselves back up into the top 5 fairly quickly. So this race, it's still wide open, essentially. Even though Connor Horn has been leading a majority of these laps, that can still change just at the tip of a coin, or a flip of a hat, essentially, or whatever metaphors you would like to say.
I can't think of any specific Michigan-related one at the moment. If I can, I'll get back to you. Just want to note as well that Jason Jacoby did claim responsibility for that incident. I think that the contact with him and George was pretty 50-50. One came up, one came down. Of course, it did end up being Jacoby's car who came back up onto the racetrack and collected others. So he did take the initiative to claim the responsibility. So that car has been given the end of the longest line penalty. He will restart in 18th position. Of course, the car is pretty heavily damaged, so I'm not sure how much of a factor he is going to be regardless. But your new top 5 seems Connor Horn still in front. Has been the lead car on every restart so far tonight. Siler Shackelford is second. Kurt Rittenberg third. Shane Parrish is fourth. And Kyle Kamer is P5. Miller, Caldwell, McBride, Jones, Cadell round out your top 10. And a restart due up still with 23 laps to go at MIS. A lot still to be decided. The 24 holds it back a little bit longer. Green flag back in the air.
Now a good start for Horn, and now a good start as well for the entire bottom side. And again, that's been the preferred line this entire week, and you're seeing line. You're able to carry that more speed on that line as you get to the gears. But once you get to that backstretch again, you don't want to be on that bottom potentially because drivers will take you side by side. Horn knows this. He's trying to block Rittenberg.
He tried to shut the door, but it's Rittenberg at the very inside. Is going to have a shallow entry into 3 and a 3-wide battle for the race lead as Kamer enters the scene on the outside. He'll actually be the one to drop back. It's Horn slotting up in front of the 8. Rittenberg working the bottom with a pretty good run, but still nobody wants to work with them. And they all go by on the outside line. Rittenberg will go from battling for the race lead to P5 by the time they get down and into the corner.
And I'm surprised that no one's decided to work with him. And it looks like he nearly got loose, in fact, because Parrish got towards his back bumper to the exit of turn 2. So at this point, if I'm Kurt, I'm thinking, you know what? May as well drop back and then try and see how this pack shapes up, because again, they're getting very aggressive like they were the last time and getting very close to that outside low with guys like Kamer and Caldwell pushing tight on that exit.
Outside line, 2.5 car lengths better than those on the bottom, so it's going to be Horn, Shackelford, but not in that order because the 12 wants it for his own. Shackelford has seemingly been up in this all night long, started second, one of the few cars that hasn't seemingly at any point dropped away out of the picture, but has not been able to establish track position quite as well. He hasn't been the one leading 2, 3, or 4 laps consecutively. They are these short bursts, and we'll see how he can fend off an attack. Miller on his inside. I don't think that's the one you're going to be concerned about. It's Connor Horn with the run, but with nowhere to go, Horn will just tuck on the bumper, push him to the lap lead. Now Flash nose low, but the 12 car shuts the door.
The thing is, though, you can see how aggressive they're blocking now, including Jeremy Miller on that top side. Some of the teammates are starting to find their way towards one another and trying to play out their strategy. I mentioned this is kind of like a restrictor plate race in that way, where you carry that speed full throttle most of the racetrack around. Some of the teammates are now finally connecting together. You've got the HBR machines in the top 3 positions. Now you got some of the Aegis cars trying to hook up now in that middle top line on corner exit. But Kamer's getting judged by 2 of them, while Miller is wrecking out of turn 4.
So far, no caution. We're going to stay green for the moment. And I think this one will stay under green flag conditions. It was Kalis who went around. He's on track now. The caution flag comes out after it was really stretched out. The 43 spun, and when it came to a rest on the front straightaway is when the yellow came out, and we will have another yellow.
And just looked like you tried to carry too much speed into turn 3's entry. Ended up just again carrying that speed about 190 plus, shed it off some again though in the apex down to 182. Then hit that bump I was talking about, and it just ripped him hard towards the left. He overcorrects to the right side and not able to lock it up in time, ends up causing some damage, and ends up having to stop on the racetrack because there were still 2 to 3 other machines that were still charging through 3 and 4 with no idea who was there. And that ends up triggering the caution flag because you can't just have a car in the middle of the racing surface stay there all the way until they find an opening. That is a safety risk.
Yeah, so obviously caution flag is going to come out in this one, and again, turn 4. It claims a couple more victims. That one a lot less severe than the one that happened just prior, and now we're pacing inside of 20 laps to go, and I know that it's still a long way from this point, Justin, but your prediction that this new MIS racing with this 2019 package could lead to some green and white checkers is looking pretty good right now, as it seems like we're in that point where late in a race you get a yellow, you can't really get out of the rut, and cautions breed cautions. We'll see cars down pit road again for tires, but I would expect a lot of the same crazy action from the get-go when this one gets back underway.
Yeah, to be quite frank, in the majority of the races I've taken part in on the official service this week, a lot of them have finished here with 5-6 lap shootouts or green-white checkers here because of how much cautions breed cautions, and the more closer you get to the end of this race, the more urgency drivers will have to try and gain positions and valuable points on the circuit when they can, because you end up losing potentially the chance to pass some of them after the 10-15 laps of a run, right? So that applies a lot of pressure. The thing is, though, we were just talking about this before the start of the race, too. Just one green-white checkered here for Michigan for tonight.
Ford down to pit road. The first car in was Connor Horn, and he slices way off before everybody else to the pit stall 17. He wins the race off of pit road. No change. Ford second. Miller still third. Dylan C. Jones exits the pit lane right behind those cars as he went for the 4 tires. So the top 5 pretty much unchanged, only Jones leapfrogging Shane Parrish for those handful of spots towards the front of the field. We are inside of 20 laps to go when the Michigan 160 will take one final opportunity to step aside. And when we come back, we'll race this one home. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. A checkered flag is on the line. We'll see how it ends at MIS next on the iRacing Esports Network.
Here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerit at the line.
Lights back out on top of the iRacing.com pace car. Race start due up, 14 laps to go in regulation for Michigan International Speedway. Happy you're with us at LSR TV, the iRacing Sports Network, with myself, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and our producer, Brett Wheeler. This time, how about the two of Nicholas Caldwell? It's a new face up front. He's on the gas, and we are back green, 66 laps down, and another restart as they race to turn one.
And he took 2 tires during that pit sequence, a major gamble again with how many laps we had on that last set of tires. There's a chance he just plows himself up the hill. You can see he's already struggling with some tightness off the corner exit. It's Horn tries to get by.
Horn on the outside is Miller trying to push him, but he almost loosened him up with a bump to the left rear quarter panel. They get separated, and it gives the inside line some hope. Look at the 5 of Rhett McBride all on his own on the yellow line to the very bottom of the racetrack as he tries to work with no help. It's good in the corner, but off the corner, not the best strategy. He'll drop right back where he came from, trying to find a spot in line now. But it's the 2 of Caldwell to the inside line, trying to challenge Horn. But Horn and Miller have been working together all night long. Those teammates trying to coordinate this on the outside as best they can.
Yeah, they've been nearly attached to the hip as well as Shackelford and Horn, but Shackelford's stuck on the bottom side now, forced to drop back and find a drafting partner or try and find an opening potentially in that second line. It looks like he's going to do so in front of Rhett McBride here out of turn number 4. This is allowing Horn to try and pull away as Shackelford blocks.
Oh, he turns himself! Shackelford across the nose to Rhett McBride. He will hang on, no caution, but the blocking costs the hometown kid. As the 5 tried to go low, they played a game of chicken to the grass, and McBride didn't lift, and the 12 car wrecked himself.
And they're wrecking now in the backstretch, the old 3 and 2.
Dylan Jones is involved as well. Looks like it's the 69 of Jonathan Cadell. Caution flag is out, and it is chaos at both ends of the racetrack. We'll have to look at a replay to see what happened up front. There was a small bobble by Shane Parrish that kind of discombobulated the cars behind him, and we had just left the replay and that look of the car recovering in the grass when this happened, so you saw it live, and then it was the 2 and the 03 door slamming each other, and at that point it was off.
And it looks like it was Dylan C. Jones that ended up just snapping loose the final moment to try and avoid the 16 in parts, and that just slammed him into Caldwell's door, then off the fence. Nowhere else for a lot of the drivers to go as they ended up piling up, as that ends up collecting 4 or 5 drivers who have to lock up the brakes or end up getting some type of damage there as Jones ping-pong off the wall. The worst bad luck though, Cadell along with the driver who's been looking for his first top 10 of the season, Kurt Rittenberg.
Yeah, tough break for cars that were having good nights. Dylan Jones spun down the racetrack and collected Jonathan Cadell. And then he mentioned Kurt Rittenberg. I think Kurt just got on the brakes. So actually, he saw the 03 go off of his nose, but he was trying to slow down. He got plowed by Kyle Kamer. So that's how those 2 machines got involved. And then the very first one to spin pretty significantly further behind this was Caldwell in the 2, who got that initial door slam into the inside wall. There's a lot of space down there to burn off speed, and he only kissed the nose into the inside wall, but it was still a relatively hard hit for the SkyTech Gaming entry of Nicholas Caldwell. So as you mentioned, at least 5 different drivers involved in that one, literally just off of the restart though. So one of the first times tonight on a yellow, we don't see a majority of the race leaders coming down pit road for 4 tires and fuel, opting to defend track position this time, and now we creep into 10 to go.
And now with it being so late in the race, I wouldn't be surprised if the drivers who stayed out end up staying out the rest of the way. I wouldn't be surprised if we never see them come back down the pit lane again if they feel like they can make it on fuel for the green light checkered situation here. So they're going to try and keep that track position. It's going to get absolutely hectic now with how this race has turned out, because there's basically, give or take, maybe 8-9 cars maybe that have minimal damage left in this field essentially. The rest of the field is either laps down, has to get repairs now after the incident, or has already gotten significant damage, so this could absolutely be hectic for these final laps.
And now, it's kind of a counterproductive issue, because when you have a race start, 30 laps to go, with the chance of it being the last restart, everyone's going to drive hard, but they still know, I need this race car to last a 30-lap run. I got to, have some tires left. And then you get to 20 to go, and they forget about that a little bit more. And 10 to go, and this restart will be maybe the ballpark of 7 or 6 laps to go in this race, Justin. Nobody is thinking about conserving the race car, trying to make it to the end. They just want to race for the win, and it works counterintuitively to try to make it work under green. So one more yellow could put us right on the cusp, if not push us over the limit and into some real sim racing overtime. And only called it at the very get-go that this one's going to be an exciting finish either way, with Shane Parrish leading this race in a very, unique position coming into tonight, as we mentioned earlier, 19th in the championship standings. He has to make up, I believe, what is 26 points to the cut line. With, if you include tonight, 6 races to go before the playoffs, it's plausible. Scott Brotherton behind him, 11th in the points, but that is only 23 above the cut line, so he needs a good night. You got the likes of Blake O'Connell, Todd Novosad, Jeremy E. Miller. What a top 5 right now.
This is a crazy top 5. Remember, Novosad had that crazy win at Talladega all the way back in the spring, so this is one of his best runs since then. It's the same strategy as Talladega. Go and stay in the back of the field, keep the car clean, and be there for the checker flag. So the Nutrisic Solutions Toyota Camry is in a decent position now all of a sudden. And so this, again, could be absolutely crazy. Oh, and remember those statistics you brought up about guys like Brotherton? He's one of those drivers you talked about who are yet to get a top 5 this season, who have a chance if the cautions play the same positions or fly in the right spots, rather. That could change that tonight.
And just a late claim on that one, Dylan Jones claiming the last caution, so he will get the end of the longest line of penalty and drop him back. And just because it's a different looking top 5 doesn't mean the usual suspects are not in this. Connor Horn is right there in P6, so don't count him out, as on this exchange of caution to flag, he brought his car down to the pit lane while these other ones wanted to gamble and stayed out. McBride, P7, Andrew T. Jones, Jason Jacoby, Shackelford a little bit further back, still in it with a bit of damage, in 12th position. So they are still in this race. But for many, if not everybody, inside of the top 5, their best opportunity to get a win in the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, is right now. And you're going to have a race start with 7 laps to make it happen.
Yeah, and you remember, and you said it yourself, there's a chance, of course, and I still think there's a strong chance, too, that these drivers not only have a lot of swaps inside, who's in that top 5, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an incident here with the differences now in the tires, and really, essentially, the top 8 drivers having the cleanest cars left. Jason Jacoby, who has no back end after that, who has a lot of damage still, is in 9th position, Chambliss in 10th. It's going to get very hectic to decide the winner of this one.
Ace car down. It is Shane Parrish's field to control with 73 laps complete, 7 more laps to go. In Michigan 160, green flag back in the air. He'll leave second on back in the dust as it's O'Connell and Brotherton side by side for second, and Connor Horn already in the fresh tires. He's coming up the middle, 3 wide, now to the outside, trying to find a way by.
And it looks like the 34 just didn't get a good start whatsoever. And Horn waited all the way to the start and finish line to make the move to the middle line. Now he's cutting through the lanes and just cut off Andrew T. Jones. He's got a huge run for the lead.
All the way to the inside as the 24 goes for the race lead. Oh, and the 18 sideways. Shane Parrish is out of control. He'll hang on. Shackelford into the outside wall. The 12 car spins. He's off and in the grass for the second time tonight, but so far we stay green.
I don't know how in the world Novosad saved that one, but it's unfortunate. That contact there we seen with Shackelford, that was a direct result of trying to make sure he didn't run into the back end of Novosad's machine. And now, after a strong run for the 12 machine, he's going to potentially fall all the way outside the top 15 if we stay green.
Still 2x2 for the lead, but it is Connor Horn with an impressive drive on the fresh rubber to go to the race lead at all of this. His challenger down low is Jeremy E. Miller, who is certainly not going to back off and give it away, but Horn back to the point that time. 5 more laps to go. How about Andrew T. Jones in the number 64 machine? He comes into tonight the first car outside of the playoff cutoff by just 13. He badly needs to bring this good finish home. Could it possibly be a win? As he'll push to 23, I think realizing Connor Horn's fast.
Yeah, the stance machine has just got to time it up right. Figure out what line is the one that's going to move to be able to give him the lead here. If he chooses wrong, that might take him out of the conversation for the checker flag. 4 laps to go this time by as the teammates still battling hard side by side.
And you know those two are going to keep it clean. Connor Horn, Jeremy Miller. Would it be the first time we've seen that team have 2 cars battle for a race win? So you like to think that they know each other's limits. But Rhett McBride now, the Ego Chevrolet. He goes into 3rd spot. He's got Jones all over him, trying to work down to the inside. Jacoby now creeping his way to P5, but with a little bit of damage. Is it going to be this top 4 breakaway? Connor Horn again, lead car off of the final quarter. Now just 3 laps left to go.
And Horn still can't clear on by. The thing is, though, you mentioned there was some of the damage. A lot of these cars can't get a run to make a move right now at this point. So it could potentially come down to a side-by-side battle. And Horn is going to try and take it and will indeed make it a single file battle now for the top 4. But look who's in 5th. Jason Jacoby somehow is now in 5th.
Trying to close in. I think, though, everybody realized it here. Connor Horn is the car to beat. McBride to the inside of Miller. They'll fight for 2nd position. All this is going to do is slow them both down. They nearly door slammed that time off for the corner. Now just 2 laps to go at MIS. I think you got to get at least 2 or 3 of these cars lined up and working together if you're going to counter the speed, courtesy, maybe a little bit of the fresh tires on the 24 Horn. Penultimate time to turn 2. We're single file again. A couple of car lengths between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
And Jones actually scraped the wall that time at a turn 2. That's how much speed he's trying to carry to keep up with the back end of McBride. But no one's been able to actually suction up to the back end of Horn since he got single file a couple laps ago. It's his race to control. White flag this time by.
Last time around in Michigan, this race is official. Last lap at Michigan 160. Connor Horn leading this race, looking for a 3rd win of the season. His teammate behind him not only looking for his 1st win, but maybe just a 2nd top 5 all year, and he needs a car length and a half more down the back straightaway. Horn snakes inside to the outside, trying to break the draft. It's Jeremy E. Miller's final opportunity as he'll drive it in 3 and 4. Look for the bumper, trying to carry the speed, but it is going to be too little, too late, and Connor Horn, 3rd time this year, he's the winner of the RealSimRacing Cup Series, victor tonight at MIS.
And Horn had the best drive, I think, for basically much of this race. Went from 17th to 1st, was actually amongst the drivers that were trying to catch up to the back end of the field at the start of this race, and still worked his way to one of the top cars in the lead group before the first yellow flag. Horn had a lot of speed all race long and showed it with a victory here today.
The congratulatory bump from Jeremy to his teammate Connor Horn. I know the team is certainly going to be happy about the 1-2 finish, but I mean, Jeremy Miller wanting 1 bit extra, just 1 more position to get a 1st win of the year. And again, there is no win in your end, Justin, so the only thing you'd be racing for is bonus points. I know he may be dejected in the moment, but Jeremy Miller came into tonight having gained 2 positions in the points last week, and he will gain a lot more tonight with the 2nd most points in this race. Huge for him trying to lock into the postseason.
And not only that, remember Watkins Glen last week? He ran out of fuel, remember, with 2 corners to go. So this is huge redemption to be able to get this victory here today after the heartbreak that came on the road course in the state of New York to be able to take the checker today here at Michigan International Speedway. A big victory, his 3rd on the season.
Good run for all these cars, and Connor Horn celebrating rightfully so. It took him a little while to finally break that car into victory lane. This is now Connor Horn's third race win in the last 7 weeks of competition, and he actually gets to drive into victory lane here on the front straightaway. He'll do some donuts there as well. We'll take one last opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll talk with him and the rest of your top finishers. Connor Horn's your winner at Michigan. We'll be back with more post-race coverage in a moment. You're watching the RealSimRacing Cup Series on LSR TV.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSR TV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And back live from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, where LSR TV's coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, continued tonight as we welcome you in the post-race coverage of the 20th race of this campaign. At back into the LSR TV booth, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince with you, along with our director, Brett Wheeler. We'll go trackside. Let's take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group of full race results. Connor Horn from a no qualifying effort and 17th on the grid to the race win atop teammate Jeremy E. Miller, who comes home second. Andrew T. Jones is third. We hope to catch up with all of them down trackside in just a moment. To continue it on, though, Rhett McBride, Jason Jacoby ran out the top 5 in this one. Shane Parrish with a P6 finish. He's plus 13 on the night. Blake O'Connell comes home in 7th. Thomas J. George in 8th, with Scott Brotherton 9th, and Sean Kalis rounding out your top 10.
In the 11th position tonight, it was an up-and-down night for Kurt Redenberg. Was just one spot away from his first top 10 of the season. Instead comes away in 11th spot. Nicholas Caldwell drops to 12. Amongst the drivers trying different strategies. That didn't work out, though, at the end of this race. Eric Stanford came away 13th without a front end, with Brian Chambliss 14th. Todd Novosad dropped to 15th after his incident we've seen with the 12 machine Skylar Shackelford, where he tried to avoid the back end of Novosad, instead making contact with a couple drivers trying to avoid that Toyota Camry in front of him. That brings us to the drivers of Kyle Kamer in 17th. But Jonathan Goodell, the first driver, lap down in 18th position. Dylan C. Jones finished 6 laps down in 19th. Jeremy Redenberg rounded out the top 20.
And the rest of these cars out of it at the end of it, it includes Tom Morano 21st, Andrew Friedage 22nd, John Fowler 23rd, Matt Miller 24th, and Jeremy Bazemore in 25th. Then just Scott McClendon behind him at P26. The cars who made a start in this one. That's a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. For more info, log on to fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. We're standing by an MIS victory lane with the driver number 24 machine, who's now a 3-time winner on 2019, Connor Horn. Connor, congratulations on the win. Good run to the end there with your teammate Jeremy on the bumper out of the final turn. Just tell us about the end of the race.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I had a feeling it was gonna be make the move that turn or get into a big wreck, because I had a feeling Shane would just lose it. And I saw how big of a run I got. I knew I was gonna go under Jeremy, but I didn't expect to have that big of a run on Parrish. It was kind of a split-second decision. I just dove and went for it. I hit the apron a little, and I know he got loose, which was gonna happen whether I went under him or not. And actually hit my right rear, got a little bit lucky, and I was focusing on what I thought was going to be a wreck out of 4, and then I almost doored Jeremy out of 4 because I didn't see him up there. And I expected him to not really battle me, but he was faster than I thought he would be on 2 tires. I saw what Nick did on 2 tires. It wasn't pretty, but I guess we had less green flag laps on the run that Jeremy took 2, and he was able to hold on. Rhett walled it out of 4 coming of a white, and I thought Jeremy was going to get through my bumper, but luckily I drove it in just hard enough so he didn't loosen me up, and I came home a winner.
For a night that seemingly kept everybody on their toes with one yellow make it feel strategy, very important to the next one, seemingly getting rid of it, and we did that dance a couple of times. It didn't really feel like anybody took control of this race, but you guys went out, led 45 laps, and got the race victory, so at the end of the day, the stats would suggest the best car won. How did you just kind of work your way through this race? Obviously, you made up the deficit from the quali position early on, and was it just being aggressive and being up, never backing down?
I wouldn't say I was over-aggressive to start the race. I think I ran a lot of A-Fix this week. I just knew how to make moves that other people didn't know how to, and I was able to get to the lead by Jacoby and all of them, with all the chaos they were racing for. The only problem I had most of the race was getting out of 4. I got loose a couple times, and I was always wary of what Jacoby was doing. Obviously he struck again with the wreck out of 4 during Thomas. Can't say I was surprised about that, but it was going to be a great race if we didn't take out all those cars, like Thomas and especially Andrew. Andrew got the worst out of this somehow, but yeah, it was just really crazy after that. It was like caution after caution. We had a couple green flag runs, and it kind of just trailed off from there, but I was able to play the strategy right.
And I'm going to go for the pun. It has been a speedy Speedway Chevrolet for the last few weeks now. A 3-time winner in the last 7 races. On the cusp of the beginning of the playoffs, you guys have known that you are going to be a playoff competing car, I guess the word I'm looking for quite some time. But obviously the race wins feel good. It'll give you a small points bonus headed into the round of 16. Do you feel like you are in the position that you need to be in to stop the playoffs, that this is the best that you can be running?
With the tracks that are in the playoffs, there's not many tracks that you can run away from the field. I don't think Andrew's going to be able to do that for much longer. I feel like I'm there. And I feel like I'm there at most tracks. Maybe the short tracks, like we saw in New Hampshire, he's still got the skill, a little bit of a skill advantage there. But I feel like overall I'm going to be able to give him a good run.
We look forward to seeing what the championship can give us. Next time out, though, we got to still take care of business, and you want to talk about the short tracks. Bristol on deck next Monday night, August the 19th. Same time as always, at 9 Eastern. Start for everybody to tune in right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. What's to come at Thunder Valley?
Well, I know I should have won there in the spring, but a bad call kind of took me out of that. But it's going to be a different race under the lights at Bristol. It's going to be a different sort of feeling. Bit more pressure maybe on some of these guys on the playoff bubble, maybe more aggressive strategy calls like we saw at the end of the race, today even, and it should be a crazy race again.
We look forward to seeing what that one will bring, and we look forward to seeing as well what the 24 machines got for us. It's a weekly show that you guys are putting on. Connor, we'll let you, as always, sponsors and shout-outs, all of those good folks. It makes it happen for you on a Monday night.
NZXT, Berlin Raceway, Hammer Bowling, and obviously got to give the biggest shout out of all to Speedway. They do a lot. They're always on the car. They really support what I'm doing here, and I'm giving them the results that they deserve. And big shout out to the teammates. Brian got unfortunately caught in the early wreck. Skylar was probably the second best threat to win the race behind me, and he got caught up in someone else's mess, and Jeremy came out of nowhere to almost take it away from me. It was a great battle to the end there, and it's a good one too. I don't think we've had that in a points race, so definitely a step in the right direction for us as a team.
Good to see you guys up front and working together, controlling as best you could a lot of those restarts. Connor, we appreciate your time as always. Again, congratulations on yet another win, and we'll catch you next week.
See you at Bristol.
Race winner tonight at MIS, Connor Horn, 3rd win of the season, and as mentioned, riding a hot streak, 3rd win in the last 7 weeks of competition. And Justin, to his closing point, it was a 1-2 finish for the team. I know Jeremy Miller really wanted that first win, but a great points night, huge points for him in his championship. Hopes your trackside now with the drive of the 23.
Yes, indeed. Jeremy Miller came into the night in just 14th spot in the standings. And in the end, had the pole tonight. Ended up coming away in 2nd spot, Jeremy. How are you feeling right now after what was a very crazy race today here at Michigan?
Just really happy that it went well today. I had some big problems early. I think lap 2 or 3, I almost spun. I was able to drive right back up to the lead pack. Had speed the whole race, but it was just really hard to pass. And once I got the track position, I kept it, though.
Yeah, I seen that happen there on the backstretch, I believe it was there in the early portion of the race, but you kept the car clean for the most part here today with this action. And how do I phrase this essentially with this next point here? Essentially, right now, of course, this was a strong team performance here. How difficult was it to try and coordinate to figure out, okay, when's the time to go forward? When is it safe to try and make these passes? Is it too aggressive out there right now to try and make something work where there could potentially be an incident? How difficult was it to try and figure out when can I get the green light, whether it was on your own or with your teammates, to figure out, can I get myself back up to that front?
For most of the race, I was really just trying to ride because I had that early mess up and didn't want to wreck my car. But there was definitely times where we had like a few people make way too aggressive moves and had to lift and get out of it. And even when you got the run, sometimes there was nowhere to go with it because we were just all stacked up in a pack. But it was definitely tough to make the choices. But once you're up front, it's a lot easier because you have a lot less to lose because there's usually a spot to slide right back up in line.
And of course, one of the things I want to talk about here, of course, is that final stretch of the race. Essentially had a under 10 lap to go shootout. How difficult was it to try and battle with your teammate and Connor Horn? You were side by side for about 2 to 3 laps at one point to try and decide who won this race. He said it himself. He felt like he needed to get clear and back to single file, was going to end up wrecking.
Yeah, I was definitely on the edge a few times. I actually, on the last stop there, I wanted to take 4 tires, but I completely missed my stall and I had to take 2. So I was really a lot more sideways than he was there with the grip, and I was just trying to keep it off of him as much as I could. I feel like if I had those 4, it might have been a little easier to drive off in the, like, maybe turn 1 and clear him one of the 2 times I was, like, right there.
Now, of course, next race, we go to Thunder Valley, Bristol, under the night lights. It just so happens to be a little bit different tire compound, if I remember correctly, using the speedway tires rather than essentially the short track tires, if I remember correctly, with that for Bristol. Oh, if you've gotten the chance to test out Bristol, how does the track feel to you compared to the last time we were there in the daytime when we were just getting a handle on this new downforce package?
Actually haven't driven there yet, but I've heard from a few people that did that it's really loose and going to be a really slick race, which usually that isn't a strong suit, but tonight I was sliding that back end around for a good bit on the long runs and holding it, so maybe I'm just getting better at that style of racing. I'll hopefully be able to go run top 10 there like I was going to last time before I got caught up in a wreck on the front stretch.
Now, before we let you go here, Jeremy, is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your team's 1-2 finish today and your second place overall tonight?
I want to thank NZXT, of course, the main sponsor of my car, and all of our other partners, Speedway, Menards, Berlin Raceway, Hammer Bowling. I want to thank my teammate Connor for racing me clean there, Brian and Skylar helping us get out on the track every week as well, and just my family all watching the race at home, and my friend Zach for painting that beautiful NZXT car.
Congratulations on the second place finish in your team's 1-2. Jeremy E. Miller coming away second tonight, Evan.
Big thanks to Jeremy E. Miller, Connor Horn, top 2 tonight, for giving us some time post-race. Don't believe we're going to have an opportunity to catch up with Andrew T. Jones, who finished in 3rd, but, just to kind of give him a moment to talk about him, of course, big finish for him. He entered tonight 17th in the points on the outside looking in, and after this evening, it is a big jump, Justin. He'll be unofficially 14th in the championship, 11 points above the cut line. Anthony Fredericks is 15th position. Scott McClendon is the cut line. Last driver in P16. Then it is Shane Parrish -5, Brad Bohr -11, Dylan Jones -14, Caldwell -21, and Sean Kalis -23. So a lot of people now starting to tighten in on that cut line with 3 races to go. And you want to talk about a crazy one to go to next with all that on the line. How about Bristol?
Yeah, Bristol's going to be absolutely crazy here, and have still been trying to go through testing myself to prepare for everything, especially with a lot of the differences I'm expecting compared to the nighttime from what we've seen in day here at that racetrack. But he mentioned it's going to be potentially slick. It's going to be very tough as well to try and handle not just your cool and your tempers, but handle your race car. So it's going to be an absolute thriller, I think, at Bristol. I'm curious to see who's able to make it all the way to the checker flag to win in Thunder Valley.
And we look forward to all of you joining us there. And again, that is next Monday night. Until then, though, that does it for us here tonight. Round at number 20 of the season falls into our rearview mirror. I want to say thanks on behalf of all of the people behind the scenes at LSR TV, and of course those who are up at a broadcast booth on a night in, night out basis, and for your team tonight. For our producer downstairs, Brett Wheeler, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pizocco, I want to thank you for tuning in and to congratulate Connor Horn, winner tonight from MIS. Still a lot of exciting live sim racing action coming up this Thursday, the 15th of August. You can catch more Rickmo Tech Cup Series action with the 9 Eastern start here on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network. For a full schedule, go to livesimracing.com. And you can stay up to date with us by giving us a follow on Twitter at LSRTV and liking us on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official. That's it, though. We'll catch you next Monday night, August the 19th at Bristol Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, going to be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until then, good night from Michigan.